Guys, like, comment, subscribe, share the video, especially if you love college football as much as I do. Now, before I get into this bet and all this other good stuff, let me give a personal shout out to the Uncle Lou on YouTube. Uncle Lou, thank you so much for accepting my challenge that I reached out to you with today, because with our first bet, which I lost, you have really helped put me over in the YouTube world. Now, I know that's not your job. I know you don't have to mention me on YouTube or anything like that, but the fact that I made that first bet publicly, you publicly accepted, and it turned out to be true by mentioning you and talking about our first bet. Doing so helped my channel grow, and it helped me gain more viewers because I also talk about college football from your channel. And I really appreciate you inadvertently helping me. And now you're inadvertently helping me again. Because really, I lost a bet. I lost $100, but I gained a lot of people. I gained a lot of good stuff since then. Because I made more college football videos that had nothing to do with you, Uncle Lou. No offense. You know what I mean? And I was able to get more viewers. And so I feel like mentioning you helped get me a lot of viewers. Because I'm not being sponsored. I'm not being promoted right now. Because I haven't been monetized yet. But I really, really appreciate you for that, and I'll never, ever forget you doing that favor for me as you are right now by accepting this bet. This time, it has nothing to do with Florida State or Clemson or any of that stuff. And you guys understand, well, Uncle Lou likes Georgia, so why are you having an Alabama LSU thumbnail? And GNS, you like Florida State, you know? Well, actually, I like Notre Dame, too. I actually have a team for every conference that I can cover on college football. Let's be honest, if one of your teams sucks, or maybe your main team sucks, you kind of don't want to watch college football anymore. But me, that's not the case. I like to watch several teams, you know? But I'll get into all that in another video. The point is of this bet is not really just to win so much, but I really would like to get more attention to my channel, and him accepting bets with me helps me do that. All right, and this is not a beef. It's never been a beef. It will never be a beef. I got a lot of love and respect for Uncle Lou for what he does. I'm actually a huge supporter. I'm not a member of his YouTube channel anymore. I was, but now I follow him on Patreon. I just started because Patreon's better. But that's besides the point. Let's get into this bet now. I reached out to him and I've watched his preseason prediction video for LSU. He has LSU going 11-1. Losing only to Ole Miss on the road. It's funny, I have LSU losing to Ole Miss too, because I started doing my own. Maybe because of Uncle Lou. But I actually think Alabama will beat LSU. All right? And he said, well, you got to give him the 7 points. I didn't have a problem with that. Heck, Alabama's beaten LSU by way more than 7 points in the past. I said, well, it's a good bet according to history. Now, I will say first and foremost, I do think LSU is going to be a really good football team in 2023. I really do think they're going to be really good. Do I think they'll be the best? No. Do I think, I think Georgia will likely be the best, or maybe Alabama, or maybe Michigan. Those teams are more likely, in my opinion. That's just me, because they seem to be the more complete football teams, or to have what it takes to be a complete football team. Now, with Alabama, I did some research. Alabama is 55-27-5 against LSU in all-time series. Nick Saban is also 12-5 against LSU. And when it comes to facing Brian Kelly, he's 2-1 against Brian Kelly in big games throughout his career, period, as an Alabama head football coach. And let's look back at some history with Alabama and Nick Saban since Nick Saban's been at Bama. He has a history of having his guys ready more when he feels he or his players or his program itself is disrespected. Let's look back at 2017 when they had to play Vanderbilt. Now, I know you're thinking Vanderbilt's nobody in college football. They're not great, but you know what I mean. They were off to a 3-0 start, and Alabama heard a lot of stuff from their players, the Vanderbilt players, and said, we want you next, this and that. And Alabama showed up and played a really good football game and ran them over at their house. 2017 when they played 2016 when they played USC, I remember Alabama's players were saying that USC players ran their mouth a lot before the Florida State game. They said, I hope FSU don't run their mouth like USC did. And it showed up in the game, 52-6, whatever it was. Let's see, heading into 2020, I remember when Tua was gone, and Bama's defense didn't look really good the last few years because Tua was the guy. I mean, of course, Tua is the best player in the country, or at least one of them, right behind Trevor maybe, or even Joe Burrow at the time. Your defense is probably not going to play as good. I've seen it with a lot of college football teams. All right. So I kind of get why people say what they said, but it turns out everyone paid for it because Bama went through COVID too. They won the national title and went undefeated. I think they were 12, 13, or 14, or whatever it was. They won the Rose Bowl over Notre Dame, and they went on to win the national title against Ohio State in Miami that year. So, and let's not forget 2021 when Alabama was an underdog against Georgia. I think they were an underdog, right? Nobody was picking them. I didn't pick them to beat Georgia, and not the national title game, but the SEC title when Georgia was number one. They were undefeated, and Alabama had that loss to Texas A&M earlier that year. But they had Bryce Young, and I said Georgia was going to run them over. And I remember Nick Saban made a comment after that game. He said, "Thank y'all for the rat poison. It was yummy." So, it's for me, it's hard to pick against Alabama. Now let's fast forward to this past year's national championship game. He was at the game itself, and somebody told him that Georgia has now become the premier or the best football program in college football. And you can see his face, he didn't like that, you know. So that tells me one of two things are going to happen with Alabama. One, they'll continue to decline, or two, that man is going to have his team ready to go, and he's going to stop at nothing to be number one again. Now, as far as him being the best, I don't know, but is he good enough to be at least close to that? Oh, yeah. And Alabama, people say they don't have anything. Dude, they've got nothing but 5 stars over there. Nick Saban always has talent there. He's always got players. I like the coaches he brought in. Tommy Rees from Notre Dame, which is why I'm wearing this shirt right now. I know he brought in Tyler Buchner. I've actually been supportive of bringing in Tyler Buchner from Notre Dame. He's still a young quarterback. I mean, look at Florida State with Jordan Travis, for example. For a long time, he was never really, not terrible, but he was never really good. It really took him like midway through his 4th year in college football, which was 2021, to where he really started to show signs of being great. And this past year, obviously, he looked really good. So you can say the same thing about Tyler Buchner. He's really only had 1 full year of college football. 2021, he was a true freshman with Notre Dame, and he was never really the guy that year. And this past year in 22, he got hurt against Marshall. And that's part of what hurt them. Now, I'm not saying he's a superstar or anything like that, but Alabama has far better athletes than these guys do. You know, and I'm a fan of Notre Dame, so I can say that. So I feel like they're going to elevate Tyler Buchner over there. And let's also not forget the fact that Alabama has Nick Saban, who's the greatest coach of all time, versus Marcus Freeman, who's a first-year guy and is still learning a lot of things. You know what I mean? So I actually think Tyler Buchner will not be great, but he's good enough to at least not just manage the game. And let's not forget, he's an athlete. He can run around, so that will help Alabama's offense. He's also more than good enough not to throw the game away. So that's my opinion on that. And Alabama's always got players, so I don't know why a lot of experts are saying they won't do anything. That's And Bama's defense, I think that defense is going to be almost as good as 2016, if not better. Smash mouth, dominate the line of scrimmage. I think both sides of the offense and defensive lines. But Bama has, who's the defensive coordinator? Kevin Steele, who I thought did a solid job at Miami. Now, it's not his fault Miami kind of fell apart at the end of the year. You know, most notably the FSU game where they didn't even show up to play. I think that was a coaching and a culture problem going on, but that has nothing to do with Kevin Steele. I actually like Kevin Steele. And I actually made a video about Kevin Steele as an Auburn fan because I like Auburn from the SEC. And I thought he was a great hire. So Nick Saban knows what he's doing. He's going to have his troops ready. That's just the way it is. I mean, if you look at his track record, anytime he's disrespected, or his players or even his program, like I said, he always rises to the occasion. Now, I think he's going to make a perfect example out of that with Texas, because people are saying Texas is going to be loaded and great and all that. I haven't seen anything from Texas, and I'm a Texas fan, you know. You don't believe me? Here's my jersey, you know. But that's beside the point. And let's talk about LSU versus Alabama. LSU really didn't show me much of anything last year to really impress me. Yeah, they beat Bama, but Alabama also underachieved big time last year. You know, they lost to Tennessee and gave up 50-something points, and they lost at LSU. Well, LSU also struggled to beat a 7-win Arkansas team. They barely beat an Ole Miss team who turned out to be not really that great last year. And they also lost to a 4-7 Texas A&M team. The bad part is LSU has a lot of talent. They should be winning these games. And to be honest, they had a chance to beat a much less talented Florida State team in their own house. Now, I know, and it's a legit excuse to an extent. Brian Kelly was a first-year guy, but he's got a lot of experience as a coach, and he has nothing but a lot of talent there. And if you look at TCU with Sonny Dykes, he didn't have anywhere near that much talent, and he managed to take them to a national championship. So I don't really buy into all that with his first year, because TCU was also a losing team before this past year, 5-7. LSU went 6-7, but that's besides the point. So, and let's look at what I think is LSU's biggest weakness last year. What I think will carry over this year. LSU didn't make any changes as far as coaches, and they did bring in 2 new offensive linemen, and the other 3 guys are coming back. But you cannot give up 42 sacks or whatever it was this past year, and keep a lot of pieces there coaching and player-wise and expect to grow a lot more. You just can't do that. Remember Florida State at one point in 2016? 15, the offensive line didn't look great. In 2016, from there, it just went bad. I mean, they couldn't protect their quarterback, Francois and James Blackman at one point. Now, I know LSU's far more talented, but it's the same principle. And LSU does have to play some good defensive fronts. Florida State in your first game, which I think they lose because of that reason. Alabama's going to have a good defensive front. Auburn, I don't think they're an elite team, but they always got good players, especially if they got a coach that knows what he's doing. Now, I think they beat Auburn, but that's besides the point. So I think that will be the reason why Alabama wins this game. If Tyler Buckner doesn't have any turnovers, he can manage the game, and Bama's defense dominates the line of scrimmage, which I think it will against a very suspect, in my opinion, LSU offensive line. Because even if their offensive line gets better, I don't think it'd be anywhere near a top 10 or a really good offensive line. I just don't. I mean, as bad as they played last year, heck, Jaden Daniels got hurt last year because nobody could protect him. And the only reason he was able to make plays with his legs is because when you bottle up a quarterback, you always have an open lane for a quarterback who's athletic as he is to run away and get away from getting sacked. You know what I mean? That's not good. You know what I mean? So, and Brian Kelly is a winning coach, so he's not going to do much different schematically, play calling wise, among other things, like most coaches wouldn't do. You know what I mean? So, he's probably going to feel really confident off of having 10 wins last year, and he's not going to do much different, because why would he? He won 10 games. He expects to do the same, if not better, with the same strategy. Now, he might make a few changes, like getting in players on an offensive line, and he knows he has a lot of talent there, so why would he? I just don't think he's going to make enough changes. I don't think that offensive line is going to be. That's why I have LSU on my channel going 9-3. With losses to Florida State, Alabama, and who else did I say they'd lose to? I said they'd lose to somebody else, but I forgot who it was. Oh, and Ole Miss. I think they lose at Ole Miss. Ole Miss gets payback in that game. But I have Alabama winning by more than a touchdown in this game. Because again, Saban's 12-5 against LSU, and he's beaten Brian Kelly 2 out of the 3 times they faced each other. And I just don't see where LSU is really going to be great this year. I just don't. I mean, because they have pretty much the same team. That's great. And your defense can help you, which really didn't play that good last year. And I think that defense will be better. But remember when Alabama and Florida State played in 2017? Talent-wise, they were pretty evenly matched. And I made a mistake. I picked Florida State to win that game. And what every person on game day said, College Game Day, with Lee Corson, they all said, and Desmond Howard said it perfectly clear. He said Florida State probably had the best players on that team as far as top level guys. Like LSU will probably have the more proven and better players. But he said what concerned me about Florida State was they could not protect DeAndre Francois. He was on his back early and often because they could not protect him. And he picked Alabama like I'm picking because of the line of scrimmage, the battle in the trenches. Alabama has never really had a bad offensive line, and because Nick Saban has gone through a lot of disrespect by hearing what he heard at the national championship game, I believe he's going to have that team ready to go. I just don't like to go against Alabama, So that's my opinion on that, on this bet. I have Alabama winning by at least 10 points or more, to be honest. If Florida State doesn't do it, because again, LSU still is a bit more talented than Florida State, so I can see why it's not a blowout. But Alabama has just as much talent as LSU, if not more. You just don't know because they have a lot of new faces, so that's why I made this bet. I feel like it's a really good bet. It's a smart bet. Now, if it doesn't work out, I lose $100, but I still gain more attention to my channel, and that also is a big win for me, So, yeah. Uncle Lou, best of luck to you, man. Best of luck to your dogs. Obviously, roll tide in this game. I think this is a good bet because you like Georgia, I like Florida State. So, it's a healthy bet. Neither one of us really necessarily have a dog in that fight, So, let's go, man. I'm looking forward to this. There we go.